And violence is violence is violence. And statistically, there was a lot more violence collectively over the period of these BLM riots through that long, hot, very difficult summer than there was on January the 6th. And the feeling...
there wasn't, Piers.
Well, there was.
No,
There was. A lot more people. A lot more people.
Yes, it was.
Well, a lot more people died.
Yes, it was. It went on for months.
A lot more people.
In this video, Vinny Oshana from the PBD podcast joins the panel on Piers Morgan Uncensored. Vinny Oshana and some liberal argue about Donald Trump's pardons. With that, let's watch Vinny Oshana wreck a liberal on Piers Morgan Uncensored.
United States Air Force. Any violence, period, I'm not for it. But that day, Piers, let's think about it. Where was the insurrection? Who had the guns? Who was violent? The FBI, Christopher Wray. We don't even know how many FBI agents, how many informants, how many people you're shooting rubber bullets in people's faces and acting as if they're not going to be upset. Okay, we saw the footage of everybody inside. Who was shooting? Who was taking over? Where was the insurrection? Where was it, Piers? Donald Trump didn't say, go in there and do all of this. A big group of people came in there. Who knows how much they were freaking
But Vinny, they were all breaking the law.
Yeah, it looks bad.
Vinny,
Piers,
Vinny, they were all breaking the law.
Yes.
We have to agree that, right?
Yes. And do you... Okay, Piers, I agree. And do you think... Who died that day, Piers? Who was actually... The highest crime is murder, okay? A Capitol Police, Michael Byrd, shot Ashley Babbitt and murdered her. Okay, unarmed United States Air Force veteran. What he got pardoned as well. Okay, and yes, Piers, it looked bad, but you know what? When the system, you believe the system's cheating you, you go to the system and you protest. And when he was talking about BLM and all the riots, everybody burned down their own city. Why the hell would you do that? If you have a problem with the police department, go to the police department. Why are you burning down black-owned businesses? Why are you burning down black-owned businesses? Why are you burning down your city? Okay, these people felt like they were cheated. And you know what? The facts have come out. They were. So they went to protest. And unless we find out with all the evidence that was destroyed, who was involved, who was in there, Antifa people dressed as Trump supporters, FBI agents inside the Capitol, unless we have all those facts, Piers, you don't know who was actually at fault and who was doing what.
Okay, I mean, what I would say about, we now know that they were cheated. Actually, we don't, because there's never been any evidence produced that that 2020 election was rigged. Donald Trump keeps saying it. I wish he wouldn't. He doesn't need to say it. He's won big now. He doesn't need to go back over that again. But actually, including Republican judges, nobody has ever found any concrete evidence that that election was rigged. So the reason why people... hang on, Vinny. The reason why people were protesting in the way they did was because they believed it. I certainly believe that. But the reality is it's never been backed up by actual hard evidence, even by Republican judges who've studied it. So this premise that somehow it was illegally stolen from Donald Trump the first time, I've said it to his face, and I believe it now, just as I still believe what I wrote in that column that Wajahat quoted from earlier. I just think that there are certain things where people can continue to say it was stolen and rigged and so on, but you've got to actually at some point stump up the hard evidence, and it's never happened.
May I say something, Piers?
My answer about the 2020 election, some people might assume that I just say, oh, it was rigged. Don't get me wrong, I lean that way. My real answer is I don't know what happened. All I know is my own experience. I went to bed feeling like I was going to wake up to Donald Trump be the president. He had just such a huge lead everywhere. And then I woke up and everything had been flipped. There were videos of people, audio conversations of multiple cases of voter fraud throughout the country. But I don't think even all of those together being in different jurisdictions, I don't think it was enough to say it was rigged. But to me, the smoking gun of evidence as to why I have to lean towards it was rigged is because Joe Biden receiving 81 million votes. I mean, he couldn't get 10 people to a rally and suddenly he receives more votes than anyone in history. I know half the country hates Donald Trump, but not to that tune. To me, that's the biggest, almost impossibility. Anyway, let's get back to it.
Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah.
Hang on, Vinny. I'll come back to you. Let Wajahat respond, and then I'll come back to you.
Yeah, Piers, look, you and I have disagreements, but we have agreements. And I read that part of your column because I agree with it. Shame on Donald Trump for continuing. This is the key word. Continuing to perpetuate a grotesque, inflammatory lie that threatens to imperil the very foundation of American democracy. What is that lie? that he won the 2020 election that he lost. And you and me, we've been on your show before, we've talked about it. It's time for him to move on.
Yeah, I agree.
He won 2016, he won 2024. He continues to perpetuate this lie to the point, Piers, where now 80% of Republican voters believe the lie. And some of them were incited by that lie, invited by Donald Trump. In fact, Jacob's former attorney said that Jacob was a guest of Donald Trump, that he was duped by Donald Trump, that he apologized for being there. That was Jacob's former attorney, right? These people were there. These are regular Americans.
Former attorney.
I said former attorney.
Former attorney.
Former attorney. These people were fellow Americans. These people were fellow Americans. They weren't evil. They didn't have horn on their heads. They truly thought that this election was stolen, which it wasn't. No proof has come out that it was stolen. Joe Biden won, just like Donald Trump won in 2024.
But do you accept? All right, but what Jahad, do you accept the argument?
But they were
hang on, guys.
Sorry, go ahead.
But Jahad,
Sure.
But Jahad, do you accept? Because I do, that there was a clear double standard in the way that people who protested through the BLM months of extreme violence in many cases, trashing institutions and buildings, attacking police. I mean, a lot of people were involved in this. That there was a clear double standard in the way that they were collectively treated by the justice system and the way that the 1,500 January 6th protesters were treated. Do you accept there's been a clear double standard here?
I think there's been an obscene double standard, and I'm so glad you brought it up, because if BLM members, if Black, Muslim, Indigenous Americans were to do what MAGA members did, first and foremost, we wouldn't even gotten to the Capitol because we would have been shot dead. And secondly, the fact that Donald Trump, wait for it, Donald Trump and his fans celebrate the January 6th insurrectionists, right? These are people, wait.
But why aren't you answering my question?
I will. I kept quiet while everyone
It's a bad answer. He doesn't want to answer it.
No, I am. January 6th, violent insurrectionists, MAGA members attacked Capitol Police, number one. They invaded the Capitol. They smeared shit in the Capitol. Some of them came with weapons with the intention to assassinate Mike Pence and Nancy Pelosi. And some of the violence that was done against 140.
But why aren't you answering my question?
No, hold on a second.
But Jahad, you got to answer my question.
Hold on.
Yeah, Jacob, I will come to you. Jacob, I'll come to you. The moment he's answered my question, I'll come to you, Jacob.
Yeah.
If you like watching videos like this one, like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Let's get back to the video.
So no BLM protesters or Antifa protesters participated in a violent insurrection. Number one. None of them attacked the police like January 6th insurrectionists who were praised by Donald Trump. And number three, if they did
attack police. They did attack police.
The right wing.
What do you
Many
mean they didn't attack police?
BLM rioters attacked police. What are you talking about?
Did they take flagpoles and beat the police?
Sorry,
Did they take pepper spray and beat the police?
many BLM
actually, while we were still
rioters
in the
attacked
building.
police. On that point,
Yeah.
let me bring back Winston. I mean, you know more about this probably than we do, but this idea, I certainly think there's merit to it. But this idea that there was a double standard in the collective way that the BLM protesters were treated compared to the collective way January 6th protesters were treated. What do you feel about that?
Well, here's the difference. Again, I'm glad we all can at least agree that violence on law enforcement is not okay. But here's the difference. Those riots, again, I'm not condoning what happened to across any major city that experienced those in the summer of 2020. However, a city block in Minneapolis, even in downtown DC, is very different than the United States Capitol, which is our sacred hall of democracy. And this temple that, for me personally, I spent years making so many personal sacrifices in service to Congress, in service to our nation.
So do you hear that, everybody? It's okay to trash a city block as long as it's not in the nation's capital, as if they're not elite enough already and don't think they're better than all of us already. And by the way, do you notice how after BLM had just burnt city after city to the ground, he says they didn't attack police, they firebombed police stations. The Democrats are encouraging them all the way and let them keep burning down cities. But when did it become a big deal to the Democrats? When it was on their doorstep, when it came to their city. Now it's a big deal. Now we're going to really punish people. What a joke. Let's wrap it up.
And so the difference there is, what happens rioting on the street, of course, that's not okay. But that is very different than attacking on a specific day when a presidential election is being certified, the actual results. Again, we have not seen any credible evidence that the election was stolen besides the president's claims that it was in
I
2020.
mean, I would
So
say to
that's
that.
the difference.
Okay, I would say, Winston, before I go to Jacob to respond, he wants to respond, and all I would say to that is, I get your point that it happened at the Capitol, and therefore to the world watching, it was worse in a way. But in the end, violence is violence is violence, and statistically, there was a lot more violence collectively over the period of these BLM riots through that long, hot, very difficult summer than there was on January the 6th. And the feeling,
there wasn't, Pierce.
well, there was.
No.
There was. A
That's-
lot more
that's-
people.
no.
A lot more people.
Yes, it
BLM.
was.
Well, a lot more people died.
Yes,
for one.
it was. It went on for
A
months.
lot more people died. A lot more police officers were attacked. Right? I mean, every statistic would suggest that there was a lot more violence over a longer, sustained period of time. And all I would say, Winston, is in the end, violence is violence.
Every time this guy is on here, he makes an effing fool of himself. He's trying to argue that there wasn't more violence throughout months of violence during BLM riots versus however long the issue at the Capitol was. This guy's just a liar, and he's really dumb too. I mean, look how he argues, you can tell. Anyway, he sucks. But we want to hear from you. What did you guys think of this panel discussion on Piers Morgan Uncensored? Let us know in the comments. Anyway, as always, really appreciate you watching, and we will see you in the next one.